Stream of consciousness in literature. Stream of consciousness is a method of narration that describes in words the flow of thoughts in the minds of the characters. The term was initially coined by a psychologist, William James, in his research The Principles of Psychology. He writes, "It is nothing joined, it flows. A river or a stream is the metaphors by which it is most naturally. In talking of it hereafter, let us call it the stream of thought. Consciousness, or subjective life. Another appropriate term for this device is interior monologue, where the individual thought process of a character associated to his or her actions are portrayed in form of a monologue that addresses the character itself. Therefore, it is different from the dramatic monologue or soliloquy, where the speaker addresses the audience or the third person. The stream of consciousness style of writing is marked by the sudden rise of thoughts and lack of punctuations. The use of this narration mode is generally associated with the modern novelist and short story writers of the 20th century. Let us analyze a few examples of the narrative technique in literature. 1. James Joyce successfully employs the narrative mode in his novel Ulysses, which describes the day in life of a middle-aged Jew, Mr. Leopold Broom, living in Dublin, Ireland. Read the following excerpt. He is young Leopold, as in a retrospective arrangement, a mirror within a mirror, hey presto, he beholdeth himself. That young figure of then is seen, precious manly, walking on a nipping morning from the old house in Clambrassel to the high school, his book satchel on him bandolier wise, and in it a goodly hunk of wheaten loaf, a mother-s thought. These lines reveal the thoughts of Bloom. He thinks of the younger Bloom. The flow of thoughts that takes him back to his past. 2. Another 20th century. Follow James Joyce's narrative method was Virginia Woolf. Let us read an excerpt from her novel Mrs. Dalloway. What a lark, what a plunge, for so it always seemed to me when, with a little squeak of the hinges, which I can hear now, I burst open the French windows and plunged at Borden into the open air. How fresh, how calm, stiller than this of course, the air was in the early morning, like the flap of a wave, the kiss of a wave, chill and sharp, and yet for a girl of 18 as I then was solemn, feeling as I did, standing there at the open window, that something awful was about to happen." By voicing their internal feelings, the writer gives freedom to the characters to travel back and forth in time. Mrs. Dalloway went out to buy flour for herself, and on the way her thoughts moves in past and present, giving us an insight into the complex nature of her character. 3. We notice the use of this technique in David Lodge's novel The British Museum is Falling Down. It is comic novel that imitates the stream of consciousness narrative techniques of the writers like Henry James, James Joyce, and Virginia Woolf. Below is an excerpt from Chapter 3 of the novel. It partook, he thought, shifting his weight in the saddle, of metempsychosis, the way his humble life fell into molds prepared by literature. Or was it, he wondered, picking his nose, the result of closely studying the sentence structure of the English novelist? 1. One property of events. A fine and fruitless illusion, it seemed, for here, inevitably came the limousine, with its very important personage, or personages, dimly visible in the interior. The policeman saluted, and the crowd pressed forward, murmuring, Philip, Tony, Margaret, Prince Andrew. We see the imitation of the typical structure of the stream of conscious narrative technique of Virginia Woolf. We notice the integration of the outer and inner realities in the passage that is so typical of Virginia Woolf, especially the induction of the reporting clauses, he thought and he wondered, in the middle of the reported clauses. Stream of consciousness is a style of writing developed by a group of writers at the beginning of the 20th century. It aimed at expressing in words the flow of a character's thoughts and feelings in their minds. The technique aspires to give readers the impression of being inside the mind of the character. Therefore, the internal view of the minds of the characters sheds light on plot and motivation in the novel.